You buy an investor sells a home to a home buyer. They get 20% down. The guys moving the property, they're making their payments.
Mhm.
Years go by. How many years? I don't know. Here in Texas, we have a 4-year statute of limitations. There comes a point in time when you can't complain about a few things because you've been doing it for too long now.
Sure.
Also, the fact that they had money down is evidence that they had the ability to do a few things. They've been making their payments in a reasonable and timely fashion. I hope for a pay history of some sort that can be verified. And you roll from there. You know, one of the nice things is today when you use a loan servicer, you have an independent third-party company to help you verify the payments are being made.
Sure.
Just like if you're buying a loan from a mortgage company or a bank, they provide you a pay history, I'm sure, that is verifiable and it comes in from a legitimate company source. You know, here in my offices, we have our software that allows us to print out a pay history and we can demonstrate when they pay. Are they paying on time? Are they paying late? Are they paying more than 30 days late? And you can demonstrate those things, which we as investors, if you're buying a note, you want to know those kind of things to make an informed decision. And it's if you see these notes out there being originated and there is no processing, I think it's just being cautious. Maybe it's hard to go back and reconstruct the deal. You know, it's kind of hard to put the baby back, you know, once it's born, but, and it's done. And if you're buying this property from an investor, maybe there's some risks to navigate. I don't know what that risk is per se, but it's just being wise, maybe asking that investor seller to provide you some evidence as much as possible. And gosh, I go back to guys to 1992, 30 years ago, 30 years ago. I don't feel like I'm that old, but originally we just took an application only. We didn't get verifications of employment or rent. We didn't get W-2s until we started selling our first note package. We went, oh my gosh, we get how much more money by having what we call a pretty package, fully documented from your collateral package perspective, which is important out there. And again, for the investor who does these loan originations, we're going to do that every time, no matter what, just because it does help you maximize dollars in the market.
So let's back up for a second, right? If someone here is going to buy a subject to property, because for no buyer, for ourselves, we're going to get to the end here for no buyers here, but for someone who's going to buy a subject to and get that transfer over to them, we've been told you need a power of attorney and paperwork like that. What are some of the items, like on a list of what people should gather together from the subject to borrower to transfer to the investor who's going to wrap the note? What kind of documents should they collect?
Okay, so we're talking about acquisition of property, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
From that original.
So, for instance, here in our law firm, and we close these transactions nationally for everybody because we like to make sure there's proper disclosures out there and that everybody goes into these deals with their eyes wide open. Due on sale, number one. And of course, we want to make sure that our seller understands that they're still liable on that debt until it's paid off. Those are the two most important things we're trying to get disclosed along the way. But if I'm buying a subject to property, I want a mortgage statement. And by the way, most sub-twos that we buy, or a lot that we buy, are in pre-foreclosure, meaning the mortgage statement that is being originated today isn't the same as it may have been 6 months ago pre-default. So I need to know what it is today and a pre-default. So I get all the terms of that loan balance, interest rate, things of that nature, PI payment, escrow payment. Is there mortgage insurance associated with the loan? Things of that nature. I want to get a copy of the note and deed of trust if possible. So what if your borrower doesn't have it? Well, your borrower can contact the mortgage company and they'll kindly email them a copy of the note and deed of trust.
Sure.
I want to get a copy of the insurance policy. If the seller doesn't have it, have them call their agent or the mortgage company. There's one out there. because I wanted to know what that loss payee clause. So I
For
want to get
insurance
enough
purposes.
information when I'm buying this property. I know what it is I'm buying and what I'm obligating myself to.
But
Is
how
this
about
a,
between the investor who's buying it and the borrower itself? Things like the power of attorney to be able to negotiate in their behalf later in the process.
oh, absolutely. So in our disclosure packages, hang on just one second, guys.
Yeah.
Forgive me here. My coffee got cold. That's been when my gals let me warm it up a little bit. We provide an extensive disclosure package between the seller and the investor buyer. In that package, it does include powers of attorney specific to the property. It includes authorization forms to communicate with the mortgage lender. It contains things such as the due on sale clause disclosures, various other disclosures between the seller and buyer, so that the seller knows exactly what they're doing. Can the seller ask for financial information from the investor? Sure. I have never seen it happen. They can. Do they want to use a loan servicer? Do they want to? They have all these things. Sellers don't know what they don't know.
Correct.
And even if there's a realtor involved, that realtor doesn't know what they don't know.
Right.
And rarely is a lawyer involved because usually the seller has no money to pay for one.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we try to idiot-proof these transactions with proper disclosures along the way so that everybody goes in, they have an opportunity to read the paperwork, understand what they're doing, and they move forward to the next level. So we go through a proper disclosure package, and I have a philosophy of we don't close that deal in one day. I like to wait a minimum of 10 to 14 days for closing. Why? I want to give the seller every opportunity to review that paperwork, to seek counsel of their choice, whether that's through a realtor, a lawyer, a financial advisor, somebody. Now, will they do it? Usually not, but it doesn't matter. I want to give them that opportunity. It's just a smart thing to do. The only time you do something faster is if you are in imminent foreclosure.
Mhm.
We close lots of deals the day before or 2 days before the foreclosure out. And there are exemptions for that instance, different scenario. But if you have the time, give the seller some time just to do that. It's a fail-safe scenario. It's about learning how to be smart. It's how you stay in this business for a long time by trying to be as smart as you possibly can along the way. Now, disclosure package is so important, getting the proper information. And if there is a law firm in, maybe this has already been accelerated for foreclosures, maybe we have to contend with that law firm and or the mortgage company or both in order to get a reinstatement type agreement from them.
Mhm.
So we know what needs to be paid at the closing to bring this loan current.
Gotcha.
So you have to know those kind of things. Equally as important, if you're buying a sub-2 deal, you better know how to navigate insurance. Because if I'm getting a new insurance policy, or if I'm going to sell this home using a wraparound loan to my wrap buyer over here, and they're getting a new policy, that wrap buyer and the original seller need to be co-insurance on that insurance policy, because if not, the lender, when they get that policy, will kick it out. So you have to learn how to navigate these things. Now,
So let's,
go ahead.
now I was gonna say, we're gonna shift gears here. 'Cause I want to move towards, for the note buyers who are listening in, who are probably going, I don't understand any of this stuff, and I'm never gonna originate a note. So I want to shift gears to the point where we're gonna talk more for flip to the other side of things, and for the note buyer, who's gonna be subject to borrower, sell it to an investor. This investor then wraps that note, right? And then I come in and I'm gonna buy that wrapped note. For those who may not understand this stuff, typically what happens is that original note may be a 2, 3, 4% note. I come in, I buy the note, or buy the subject to part of it. The borrower sends it to me. I now take over payments on that 3, 4%. I then sell that note at 9, 9.5, 10, whatever I'm selling it at, and I'm gonna make payments to that first or pay off the first. Those two scenarios we'll get into in a second. Now, as a buyer, before we get into if we're gonna pay off the first or not, how do I properly get that power of attorney transferred to me for, say, Nathan, who was the investor who purchased the subject to part of it?
That's a hard thing to do. So
I thought so.
years ago here in Dallas, some of my buddies and I in a meeting one day kind of coined this term called sub 3. Now you got sub 2, now you got sub 3, which is the buying of the wrap note, but leaving the existing mortgage in place.
Mhm.
And again, to me, this is all about disclosure, where although you don't have to disclose certain things at this level, it's a wise thing to do. You know, I want to make certain first off that the person who bought this, the wrap buyer, you know, was given proper disclosures along the way. And again, most
And
people
just pause
don't
it
have
for a
names.
second. I want to make sure people understand what that means. They have to be notified that there is a first lien that's subject to part of it. They need to know that because when they're buying it, they may think they're in first position and they pay off their loan. They need to know there's another lien there because that lien can foreclose on that property.
That is
Sorry,
absolutely right. And here
And
in
I've told
Texas, by the
people-
way, guys, we have what is called the Texas Underlying Lien Disclosure Notice.
Mhm.
And it is a mandatory 7 days prior to closing. And if you do not provide that, the damages are substantial.
And I have spoken to people that have not given that disclosure, and I just go, oh my goodness, like must
You know,
do,
and by the way,
must
I don't
do.
know who drafts their mortgage documents for them, but when you're doing a wraparound loan, you're
Mhm.
supposed to have language in those documents
Yes.
that evidences the existence of the underlying mortgage, you know, in the deed and the note and deed of trust, et cetera. And if you're not doing that, that's a problem. And I'm not so sure how you go back and do it again as the other problem once it's already done.